thank you for your kindness. You've been good to us. Lord, may we, even as we gather as citizens in Manchester, may we be mindful that you've given us the opportunity to have a say and represents us. So we're thankful for that. Pray that those in our community have done their due diligence to play their role in it. And so we pray tonight for each alderman, mayor, and those have a role that you would give clarity of thought and wisdom as they do the business that needs to be done. Thank you for all the ways that you've provided for us. May we just continue to look around and see the ways that you've been gracious and kind to our city in the way in which our families have a safe, healthy place to raise our kids, play ball, go to work, play. So thank you for all that you're doing in our community. May we honor you and glorify you in the way that we care for one another, treat one another, and interact with those who place around us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Messett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elam.
Here.
Do I hear a motion to approve the April bill minutes of our last board meeting? Moved and seconded. It's moved and seconded. The motion is as presented. Any discussion or corrections? Okay, please.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton.
Aye.
Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Messett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elam.
There's no correspondence. Any comments from the citizens? Any comments from the citizens?
Are you sure there's no comment from the citizens?
I was just coming up to talk about the ordinance for this meeting. Should I be that now, or would you rather me?
All comments from the citizens will be at this time.
Okay, awesome. I was just requesting that ordinance be brought back. I think last time there was some misunderstanding. But I'm the president of the sub team. I was unable to make it last time. But AJ and Colt and Becky and I have been working very close together. And we've worked out everything, I think. So I was just hoping for the swim team's sake that we could do that. It's basically our swim team will survive and not based on that ordinance. So we really need that to pass if possible.
And we will present that during, business. Thank you so much. All right, comments from me, I would like to say, hopefully this will be done as, smoothly and quickly so that Attorney Ewell and the rest of us that want to hear the results of the election tonight. So that's my comment, and just welcome everybody that's here tonight. Okay, committees and commission report, safety. Anything to report?
Does any of the chiefs or codes have anything? Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Finance.
We had a meeting and the budget amendment is up for vote tonight.
Street.
Got sidewalks done yet, George?
First of all, I'd like to announce we have hired I have hired a assistant director of public works, Lyndon Bassell. Hope I didn't get his name. We're busy there working the street department. We are doing our street paving around over in Lucy Ranks and all that. That's all I have. Street committee is Monday, 11th.
Congratulations.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations. Board work. Okay, water and sewer.
Area meeting on Thursday.
Thank you. Recreation.
We have a breakfast meeting on the 12th of May, and we're going to use tonight is for with a part-time job.
Hey, AJ, I sent you an email asking if you asked for, rec board to, is this the job description you said we had to meet to roll?
That was on the last agenda, yes.
Is that a big thing?
That was one, and then the other thing was to talk about food trucks in the parks. The ordinance of recognition has, I guess, important, you want to say, to regulate food trucks in the parks.
Tourism,
Meeting last week.
planning and zoning,
We just completed our agenda and our Saturday meeting will be on the ninth, and I'm normally go with the review of covenant and recently done the meeting except for the 16th. Just regular agenda with some blanks and reasons.
information system,
There will be a cyber awareness, security training, here at City Hall for all full-time and part-time employees who use a city computer. Training will be about an hour. That'll be on May 17th. Two opportunities on May 18th and May 19th. And members of the board will welcome to attend if they would like. We had a meeting and approved the demolition of the little Arco building that is beyond repair. And it was published. Our next meeting will be
We have to go out to the agenda, so I think we'll make it
resolutions.
The first thing, Mayor, I have is a resolution adopting the plan of services preliminary to annexation of 11 and 16 acres of property owned by John Kenneth McMahon and Robert S. McMahon located on First Highway.
Make the motion. Is there any discussion on this particular item? No.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Messett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elam.
Resolution proposing annexation by written consent of 11.61 acres northwest.
Any discussion? Call roll.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Messett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elam.
So moved. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Messett. Alderman Nichols.
What?
Alderman Elam.
Resolution amending the fiscal development plan of the city of Manchester, parcel in South Springs.
So moved.
Any discussion?
That may be Vice Mayor Messett.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Messett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elam.
Resolution amending the fiscal development plan, Interstate Drive in Parker.
Any discussion?
Alderman French. Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Messett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elam.
Resolution authorizing contract with the state of Tennessee for maintenance of city streets, about 82
Any discussion?
Alderman French. Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Messett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elam.
Second reading, ordinance zoning 56 and 6100 acres owned by Allen Howard, wife Maryland Howard, recently annexed to the city as part of the residence.
So moved. Second.
Motion been made and seconded, any discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Bassett.
Aye.
Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elo.
Second reading of an ordinance, amending the zoning ordinance to rezone property owned by Stephen C. Fletcher, wife Commission.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Bassett.
Aye.
Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elo.
Second reading of an ordinance to
So
rezone.
moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
In the future, this will consent.
What did I say?
I would consent on all of them except I, and that one needs to be set aside. Can we do that? That's out of this motion. I'll rescind my motion. I'll make a motion that we create a consent agenda with the remaining ordinances, with the exception of I.
We need to stay on C.
Is it C or I?
C.
Okay.
Wait, this one.
Okay, I'll make it. I'll leave my motion the same. With the exception of C and I.
C, with the exception of C. So D, approve F, except
I'll make a motion to create a consent agenda for items D, E, F, G, H, J, K, L.
Yeah, my question is.
no, we haven't done so that one.
How you doing?
It's been moved and seconded. The motion is presented. Any discussion on C?
No, it's on, it's just only credit, is to amend the agenda to do these items by consent.
That's got a second, so.
Any discussion on amending and? Oh,
Alderman French. Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Bassett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elo.
We can move to approve the consent.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as stated.
who got second? It's been moved and seconded. The motion is as presented. Any discussion?
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Bassett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elo.
I'll make a motion on item agenda C.
It's been moved and seconded. The motion is as presented. Item C. We got discussion on?
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Bassett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elo.
I'll make a motion on item I. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Bassett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elo.
Sir, I'd like to make a motion for approval on the second reading, ordinance amending, establishing the use of recreation center swimming pool. So, be approved. Second reading.
It's been moved and seconded. The motion is presented. On the building, any discussion on this?
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Bassett. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Elo.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, I made a motion to, table consideration of a city administrator until we had been able to collaborate with the task. I made clear that night though, did not make that motion to avoid an election. That was not at all the intent. within 2 months now. And we've not been able to get that scheduled. So I would like to make a motion now to go ahead and open up consideration for that, for the mayor to take applications, schedule interviews. At the same time, I would still like to pursue with a special call work session with the full board mayor in August. So this discussion can be debated. So this isn't a final determination. We're hiring one or we're not. But this board has discussed this for well over 3 years, and this board deserves to be able to debate that in a work session. So I'm making a motion.
The motion has been made, restate your motion.
So my primary guts of the motion will be that we open up, we post city administrator position as stated. We go ahead and call a special work session as a full board, work through those details with the task, if the task can be there. If they can't, we still have to see how.
Motion has been made, seconded. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Can y'all just tell me why we haven't done this? Why it hasn't come?
We're supposed to first surgery, but she, as of yesterday, she's actually set this, as a special call. She had 3 options. So, she's already.
And the situation with MTAS is, we had set it up with her, she had seen her doctor, the way I understood it, she had seen her doctor, he was going to do surgery, and then they looked at other options, which the other option seemed to work, and then they were going to see if it worked, and now they're looking again at surgery, and she hasn't, we haven't been putting it on. And my position, I think on this is no, I have not been dragging around, but it's a situation where we don't know whether we want a city administrator, we don't know whether we want a city manager, we don't know whether, some cities have been called as there's a term that say, director of operations. We don't know what the roles are. Yet, as far as this night, we start interviewing, that's like putting the cart before the horse. There's so many unknowns. I don't think that, and I'm for, and honestly, I haven't been dragging it out. And another concern is we will have in August, and I know that we don't just keep the city on hold, and I can tell you that, I can use help. I mean, I would definitely, but I can tell you that I have not talked to one, but I've talked to, there's 2 that I haven't talked to yet. Everyone says that they want to be a part of the hire if we get a city administrator or whatever we will, and if there is some turnover, because it is a hard job with city administrator. I can't imagine they're not elected, especially with the city that we're used to having a mayor, that it's going to be, it has been hard in the past, but we don't say, well, it didn't work in the past, we can't do it now. But to have potentially 3 new seats, it's going to be a different looking board. That's my concern, but I would like to have a meeting. I would like to get impact involved. That's my comment.
Mr. Mayor, I've got one short comment. The city administrator is probably a good deal, and we can position quite a bit. But I don't see this board, like Ryan said, we had 3 years. I don't see this board with the potential of adding half a new board, hiring a city administrator, and the new board comes in, and they want to terminate that city administrator. We got to buy that contract out, we just serve. So I think it needs to be waited until after the election, so we don't run into a position where this board hires somebody, the next board don't like him, they fire him, and we've got a multi-$100,000 contract. I just think it'd be bad business. We had 3 years, we've not done a lot, we've not restored, and that the other team have input to where we don't potentially cost the city a lot of money.
So that's one way to look at it. That's like the most negative way you could look at it. The other way to look at it is this board perfectly capable of making a decision, working through hiring an individual. That individual, by definition, will be better at job security. And what we call it doesn't matter. Our charter describes the duties of that person. If somebody wants to go to the legislature of the state of Tennessee and get that changed, that's another thing. But I don't want this opportunity taken away from me because I'm not going to be here. I think that's completely. And, you know, the whole thing about, I mean, everybody can jump to the negative. And it's always the way to kind of bully or put people in the thing. But no, there can also be extreme positive. Whether the person saves $500,000 the first month of their year. I mean, that's just anecdotal, could be in the future, scary, you know, so I can't sleep. If we don't have a city administrator, we don't need a school superintendent, we don't need a director of Parks and Rec, Brian, we don't need you. You know, it's like the reason you have leadership, the chief of police, they don't need it. The reason you have leadership is to consolidate all the information that's in the world and disseminate it into a group. That's what this city manager does. We've been lacking for 20 years in this town. And it's why we suffer now. It's why we have a regressive political government. And what this is doing is changing our entire government in our town to a professional, progressive government. It's the only thing we're lacking to keep us to the next thing that we've got. And we're on the precipice of some really big stuff right now. I know the schools are overcrowded, everybody wants to, that's the same argument, you know. They're overcrowded, we'll go to school, we'll figure out how to do that. It's not like you don't go backwards because, you know, you're worried about something. You go forward and have confidence you can fix it. And that's where we're at right now with the city manager, CEO, city, whatever you want to call it. The charter describes it, what we call it doesn't make two means. We've got to have help. The part-time mayor cannot do what we're doing right now, let alone what's getting ready to happen this next year. It's getting ready to go nuts in the most possible, brilliantly good way you can imagine. It's going to be awesome. And if we let people drive this community and say, this is going to be terrible, this is going to be terrible, that's where you're going to live. No, it's not. We're going to live where it's happy, we're going forward, and we enjoy life when we can. The next step to that is to hire, at least to tag on discuss having a city manager, some professional leadership.
But it is in my nature to look at every side of it. When I look at Brian's job description, there is a job description. We know where his job description is, but you know, if I understood it right, and correct me if I'm wrong, then I'm supposed to start hiring people when we don't have a clear job description.
It's in our charter.
So, why?
Yeah. So I would just two quick things. We do have, so
We're good with
changing the charter, changing the job description requires charter change, right? That's not what I ever anticipate doing. What I want to do is create policies around that to help support the position. So, I
The template is there.
I'm not in any way saying that we need to change the charter, but we do need policy. Now, I'll say another thing too. This is very important. We as a board cannot obligate future boards. But future boards can't obligate us. We have an obligation, and in this particular case, Roxanne and Bill both have an obligation to fill their term. We expect them to be here every meeting, and they ought to be able to have a full vote. I've always felt that way about that particular, I didn't think we disrespectful.
I agree with that, all we shouldn't be here tonight, we're just
That's right.
sitting in August, final meeting tonight, we're not
And I-
about what we voted.
I'm confident in the public that don't put a board up here that's gonna have the ability to pick, work through whatever we leave them, as we always do. So those are the two things. Now, again, I am very adamant that for this to work, and you know, Alderman Bellamy makes points that are very valid. For this to work, we need to have some support structure around that. There are ordinances out there, there are resolutions out there that we can pass that help support the position if we decide to go with the position. We need to have that debate, we need to have the discussion. That's why we want to open this up. Now, as far as when we post something, as far as job description, the job description that exists today will be the job description that's posted. Because that will require charter change, which I am not in favor. Or for.
We got the written, it was great, charter, we were doing that back in the nineties, or whatever. Correct? 15.
I think there are 2 or 3 points that we need to talk about.
We had a couple of city administrators, managers prior to that.
We had some city administrators before, but the charter changed, the last one that was 15 or 17.
Change,
This is a manager as opposed to a city administrator.
and that was changed to 15.
I think.
When was the original thing put in the charter? We had them back all
Probably before I was out of.
right.
Because we had, before when his son and I went to school together, so back in the 70s.
But back to my point, it's been in,
In some ways of form. The way the charter is written right now, it says that the board by ordinance shall prescribe certain duties of the city manager. The ordinance presented, and I don't know if it passed on first reading or was preferred, I think you've got to create those duties because the charter says you have to pass an ordinance creating those duties. Why the charter, why you has screwed up that way, I don't know, but the charter doesn't. It's, charter lets you all create it, but you have to do it by ordinance. And I don't know if we voted on the first version several months ago and tabled it, or if we got one reading and then tabled it, and then you look back. But to create that job description, I know it's going to require one more vote, but something was tabled. Then the issue becomes, you know, this motion directs interviews and things like that without salary ranges or whatever, and that may be okay with you all, because that gentleman or lady works at your all's pleasure. He is a person by charter that can be hired and fired at will. From a practical standpoint, most of those people demand a contract that has certain provisions in it to be bought out. Our charter does require the person to live within the city within 90 days. So that's always an expense, and a living expense, and whether the people, but those are practical problems. But again, the charter or the code section requires any contract obligated in the city in excess of $35,000 is got to be approved by ordinance. So I don't know how you all wish to do it the most efficient, because it's your all's time, but you know, we can, the ordinance is going to need to pass to establish those duties as required by the charter that's already been drawn up, whether it just needs a second reading or whether it go back and do a first and second. But then I think you all need to decide how you're going to conduct this, because what you're going to talk around before, because you've got to ultimately approve their contract by resolutions and stuff, will obviously bill for $35,000. So I don't know which is the cart and which is the horse and how you all want to do it, but I think that just needs to be thought through. But I think the first preliminary thing, where you've made a motion, it's been seconded, so that needs to be voted on, and then we need to talk about the ordinance establishing the duties that's provided for that we dealt with several months ago.
Does the charter doesn't say that we have to explicitly establish that we're pre-hiring someone. The way,
No one to hire, there's no position to hire for if you don't.
the way we talked about this is back when it was originally, when we discussed this on the charter change, what we wanted to do is have the capability of going into a negotiation with said person. And so we could pass an ordinance after, if we said we accepted and we approved that contract. Because if we pass it by ordinance, then the contract could not conflict with the ordinance that we just passed.
The person would not be a city manager You could do a director, you could do city administrator, but you could not do a city manager with the powers of the charter unless you provide that he shall be, the duty shall be as prescribed. Let me get, I have it right here, so. But you have to provide the duties of the city manager by ordinance. And so you've got to pass that ordinance to create the position. I don't know why it's done two ways, but that's the way the charter mentions you can do it, but you've got to do it. It says, unless otherwise designated by the board by ordinance, the mayor shall perform the following duties related to the department head. Those duties set forth in Article 50. The board does not appoint a city manager. And then it talks about the city manager's duties, and I think MPAS drew the ordinance up that we looked at earlier. That's got to be adopted first to create city. Well, I've got it right here. So you've got to pass that ordinance to create the city manager to have the powers that are in the charter. So that's got to be passed at some point. When you start interviewing people and taking applications and whatever, and then if somebody fitting or not fitting, then you've created you got to create a position, I think. I don't think you can create it after. I don't think you can provide for the duties of the city manager according to the charter after.
Will you make an offer, Andrew? Attorney, you make an offer, you make an offer, Andrew?
Not if it's over 35,000 without a resolution. You can do it. You get to a resolution. It would require board action.
Okay, after this motion, this is a discussion period. Item 10, I'll make the first motion to approve the in-task ordinance. That being said, I'll make a motion as it's written tonight, but I still want this full board to get together to approve the final draft of that for second reading. So that would be continuing. After this motion, if this motion passes, the current motion,
We start interviewing.
if that
Then I
motion,
start interviewing.
if that, well, I'm saying we open the position, you can close it Monday, so I'm not saying interview, that's your prerogative. And if you want to align it with my second motion that I intend to make, then that's your prerogative as well. After this motion, if it were to pass, hypothetically, speaking, but I'll make a second motion to adopt in-task job description. However, do you want us to have a call meeting or call work session before that is read as a second?
So can you tell me, Gerald, what MTS job description is?
Yes. It actually parrots and copies the things that are in the charter.
It's just hard for me to comprehend. Maybe you guys can. It's hard for me to comprehend. I start interviewing people. Look, throw it out there and interview them. We don't even know what the duties are. Can you appreciate it? If we start interviewing, we don't have the duties of the job. That's just.
So then, I would make a motion to have, we're going to have,
Before we even start interviewing. Or
so just, if you call roll right now, in a second, I'm going to make a motion for those things. And just as soon as this one,
Okay, we're calling the roll as far as.
the brain's off, I don't even know if
Start
that's.
interviewing for.
Let me restate my motion, because
Okay.
that is not what I mean.
Go ahead.
I made a motion to table
You're
the
ready.
consideration of city manager slash administrator slash Starfleet Enterprise manager, whatever. I am pulling that motion off the table. I made that motion pending in-task review. it is it's clear and apparent at this point, impasse is not going to be able to review that in a timely manner. It has already been 2 months. So I'm pulling that motion to freeze that off the table. So now, we can consider it if we want to, if we don't want to, we don't have to.
So your interview motion, you're gonna withdraw, and you're gonna make a motion to take the motion tabling this off the table.
Yes.
Logically, that makes no sense.
Motion been made. Do I hear a second on the motion? Call roll, please.
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy.
This is taking,
Remove from the table, take it off.
Bring it back.
take it off. No.
Vice Mayor Messick. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Neal.
You need to make.
I'll make a motion we adopt the in-task description for city manager.
Pass an ordinance.
Pass an ordinance.
The motion's been made, second.
I would like for us to schedule a work session right now, if we can do that, before the second reading this week. Yeah, I'd like that to be part of the motion, if you can make a motion. And I would really just make a recommendation, like that meeting, if there's no conflict between the 9th and 17th. Item 19. 19, 6:30.
To make it, I don't know.
Is it, you have name?
The date, 20 something.
I would really prefer participation from everybody. And I know that's just a preference. Everybody's got to.
So, before they left the 27th.
Six 30 on 31st.
Is that not Memorial Day?
Memorial Day, 30. Okay. I'll put that in my original motion, that Tuesday, 31st, 6:30 to
6:30.
Okay, what y'all do now?
And we can also get
Any discussion on it? Discussion.
Motion to adopt in
Pass this ordinance on that first reading, establishes the duties. Pass this ordinance on the first reading, establishes the duties. And to set it on the session for the 31st.
Any more discussion on this?
Alderman French.
Aye.
Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy.
No.
Vice Mayor Messick. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Neal.
right now in the new business, we have Parks and Rec, job description on the rec commission. AJ, you think you said a packet? So your motion to adopt this,
I'll make a motion.
do I hear a second? Any discussion on the motion?
Alderman French. Alderman Martin. Alderman Bellamy. Vice Mayor Messick. Alderman Nichols. Alderman
Okay, tonight, A-Shield and Manchester Police Department, Fire Department is, doing open of office and promotion. Before we start into this, I would like to just say today, the mention, kudos to, Jimmy Collinsworth of the Manchester Fire Department. I stepped in a hole and was getting ready to fall into an oncoming car. And that, Jimmy Collinsworth caught me with one hand, and I am here tonight. So, anyway, Roger?
Thank you all for giving me this little bit of time. We have a fireman that is out of office and we've had some promotions on that shift. The guys have worked hard, they've accomplished a lot, and they've been really good work for Manchester City. I'd like to present it.
What we're saying,
Yeah. First of all,
I'll do it all.
okay.
No.
Travis Bell, would you go in there?
Hold up right hand, please. I, Travis Field, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and of the state of Tennessee, and that I will discharge the duties of firefighter in the city of Manchester, Tennessee, faithfully, honestly, and impartially, to the best of my skill and ability.
Second, we've had the promotion of Jimmy Ingram for the position of lieutenant. You want to agree to it? The guys just got back from a fire not long ago. Get your land from them. They did a really great job. Sharon's a little quiet.
Appreciate it, Paul. Thank you all.
You can come back and say this.
If we can interview afterwards, and we'll get pictures of the families.
Second, we've had Zachary Logan to the legal student. We've had Zachary Logan to the position of lieutenant also. He's worked hard for it. Sorry. We've had Jimmy Russell work with us for a long time. We've been learning from the positions run. Why?
That one's over. Thanks, Roger.
Good job, Crosby. That was awesome. Last thing, Tim Durden had served on the planning and zoning for several years, and he put someone else to take the position. We had two applicants. Janet Thorpe was one of them. We appreciate her putting her application in, and other was Ward Johnson, and it is a mayoral appointment. And I have asked Gerald, Ward Johnson to serve as on the committee, and he has said yes. So, yeah.
Steve served the city well. Really, pragmatic, fair decisions. I'm not speaking for myself, I know the whole thing. Good for us, sir. I'm sure that.
I'm from the board. Stop. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn this meeting. All those say yes.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go to the beer board.
Two beer board permits in front of you, one is for Good Friends Music LLC.
I'll make a motion.
One of that, there are 5 applicants, just want to make you aware, one of the applicants did have the UI on the record, it was a judicial divergence, so it should be expunged, just for your knowledge.
Can I ask about the 5 applicants?
I think they're all business owners, is what I understand, they're all partners in the venture.
Can it not be under the name of the LLC?
It is on the list. I think if you've got more than 5% ownership, you've got to run the background check. So that's all, but there's truly an applicant or just a person with that much interest. But there'll be a single beer license in the Good Friends Music LLC.
I'll make a motion that all the applicants are under consideration.
It's just one. Okay.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, the job is 14, 103 Hillsborough.
Yeah, I read that, but I didn't know what one was.
Any more discussion?
Alderman French. Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy.
I'm being here, I'm trying to.
Mayor Howard. Vice Mayor Messick. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eagle.
The city permit is LOKSA, there's 4 applicants.
Make a motion.
Any discussion?
Really open.
It doesn't say.
Probably the 19th.
Just for the address change?
Yes.
My wife makes me go there every day. I'm just looking for a board that scenery changes.
Any more discussion? Call the roll, please.
Alderman French. Alderman Patton. Alderman Bellamy. Mayor Howard. Vice Mayor Messick. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eagle.
Okay, there's your motion to adjourn.
Congratulations.